Again, a hearty and happy good Tuesday morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Burns. I'm the mayor of Geneva, Illinois, and I proudly serve as the chairperson of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Environment Committee and Energy Committee. This morning, we are talking about what I think is a pretty cool initiative, and I'm certain that a lot of us have heard about or talked about or perhaps even explored. But it's really about a dark skies initiative and lighting in general. And as all of you know, outdoor lighting that is excessive and unnecessary causes light pollution, which has numerous negative effects and consequences for people and the environment. Persistent light and certain kinds of light can disrupt circadian rhythms for humans and animals and have health consequences. Outdoor lighting that directs light skyward or lighting that serves no purpose for navigation, operation, and safety wastes energy and, of course, money. Solutions to this unwanted light pollution include strategic lighting design, controls, and light fixtures. Solutions also include certain policies that may be enacted by local government. Municipalities can also help by educating and engaging the community about better outdoor lighting. As stated earlier, we have an extraordinarily talented lineup of speakers who will shed light, pun intended, on best practices and solutions that will help keep skies dark and communities safe and comfortable. Our first speaker is my friend, Mr. Walzak, Senior Manager of the Adler Planetarium and Board of Directors for Dark Sky International, and he's an associate member of Illuminating Engineering Society, otherwise known as IES. Ken is a Dark Sky International delegate and a co-founder of the Dark Sky Chicago chapter. He's also senior manager, as referenced, at the Adler Planetarium and an associate member of that very cool Illuminating Engineering Society. So Ken, the floor is yours. We look forward to your presentation and thank you again for being with us.
Thank you all. I mean, the turnout's great. It's good to see this much interest in this subject. Just going to jump right in. There's a lot of information to share, and I want to give you all a chance also to ask questions and get some feedback as well. So thanks for having me, and let's see. Well, let's going to touch on a little bit about what the night sky is and darkness restoration and concern about light pollution all really means, and how it can actually affect every person in your town or municipality. We think of night as sort of like maybe a throwaway sometimes. But really, if you think about the history of the Earth for literally billions of years, it's entrained in a cycle of dark nights, bright days. And that, connects to just about all the biology on this planet, as well as ourselves and how we've evolved. So this is sort of my joking representation of the Earth at night, as it's been for nearly 4 billion years. But this is kind of how it's been changed. This is what you've probably seen these images of the Earth at night taken from satellites. And, what you really notice is not only densities of lights in populated areas, but areas where there's actually very little light, but really how a natural environment has been transformed. So what once was maybe a world of you could look up and see the Milky Way wherever you were up to maybe about 150 years ago. The advent and the proliferation of light at night has sort of transformed what we think of at light at night, no longer as a connection to the stars, but sort of we've replaced it with the lighting of our own making. We think if you heard about light pollution, if you've been maybe aware of it or been on your radar, probably the first thing you think of is those starry night skies. Betty Maya Foote is an amazing astrophotographer at Dark Sky International, and she shared some of her images with me, and I was like, I think I can make a really good comparison here. So what I did was I took her settings from her camera. This was taken at Bryce Canyon, and put the same settings here in Chicago, and to see what the environment really looks like. So this is from the Chicago region of a sky transplanted into the beautiful, pristine area of Bryce Canyon, you see like what we're missing. Sometimes we don't even realize the importance of just sort of the historical, the cultural, the just experiential importance of a starry night sky. Now, that is, I like to say that the loss of the stars, loss of the Milky Way across the sky is sort of the canary in the coal mine. Maybe it doesn't have much relevance to most people. Hopefully, you've had that experience where you've gone somewhere where you can actually see a beautiful night sky. But the proliferation of light pollution, which, as Kevin mentioned, is actually just misused or overused or poorly used light, can actually have major downstream consequences beyond just the stars. A recent study that was published last year actually found that in the 11 years from 2011 to 2022, total light emissions from the Earth shooting up into space. Now, you think about it, if you have a street light or a lighting, you want that to be lighting a street, for example. So if it's being seen from space, we know almost by definition that it's wasted light. And it has been increasing nearly 10% per year. Now, you imagine if you had some sort of other environmental pollutant that was increasing at that rate, there would be alarm bells going off. So I just had a way to maybe raise those alarm bells for everyone else as well, since it's the topic that we're interested in. Just to give you an idea, from those observations from space, we can actually estimate how much energy is being emitted. And so I just did a test of Illinois itself, and it totals up that energy emission totals up to 483 gigawatt hours of light, that energy going into space. So that's, in a sense, the unused amount of energy that's being emitted. So obviously, you can imagine the implications of that. Now, this figure is a little old. I do have to update it, but the Department of Energy a few years ago estimated that 143 trillion watt hours of energy are used. Now, this isn't just the one that goes up, the light that goes in space, but just the amount of use. Just as this is just for commercial and municipal outdoor lighting annually in the United States. 143 trillion watt hours of energy. I mean, which is 85 million tons of carbon emissions generally. So you can start to see that this is not only a cost-saving issue about using the light judiciously or correctly, but it's also an environmental issue. But we think, well, especially here in the Chicago region, we are one of the most light polluted regions in the world, I'll admit. And you're thinking like, well, but that's sort of the price of modernity, right? But let me just point out that using that same data that we can actually observe from space, we can do apples to apples comparison. So here is Cook County in the Chicago region, and about 5 million people in Cook County. Berlin and its Brandenburg area is, close to about the same population. And these are on the same scale, size-wise, and also the color gradient is, the redder it is, the brighter it is. So we can do that same estimation and say, all right, well, let's say an equivalent city or region, just like the Chicago region, they emit about 100. Don't worry about the units themselves. Just kind of look at the bulk number: 130,000 nanowatts of energy at any one moment. Whereas in our region, we emit about 8 times as much energy. So it can be done. That's the thing I wanted to point out, that it's not that there's only one way. If you just have a population of this much, it's going to have that much light. So there are actual solutions out there. But the energy use and the carbon emissions, the environmental impact is not just about energy production. This is also, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that history, that cycle of light to dark in our evolution is really encoded into our biology. And not just ours, but so many nocturnal species. In fact, interesting detail is that 70% of all mammal species are nocturnal. And so they need darkness to survive. That is their natural habitat that they've evolved with. You can imagine what happens if just think about like a fish needs water to survive. If you said, oh, you know what, we're going to take away all the water, where would that fish live? We have to think about those downstream consequences. Um, so just to give you an example, you've probably heard about, well, this is a map of bird migration throughout the night. What you saw was a red line go across the United States. That was sunset. Look how many birds are actually in flight. Actually, over 1 billion birds were in flight on this one night. And this is done by the um, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, where now that's the sunrise just crossed, and you can see how the numbers drop. So bird migration is primarily done at night. When birds get confused by lights, especially in buildings, it could have drastic consequences. You probably remember about a year and a half ago that there were over 1,000 birds that collided with the McCormick Place building on the lakeshore on a single night. Now, the wonderful thing is they responded. They actually put in some investment to repair that, or actually put some treatments on their windows. And there actually has been a dramatic decrease in the amount of bird collisions that we've seen, which is, that's the idea that there are solutions. And this isn't just from animals, which we obviously think is the most obvious, ecological impactor, but it actually affects plants as well. This is a grove of elm trees actually right outside the Adler Planetarium, right beneath a very bright, very excessively bright, unshielded, means it's shining everywhere, light near the beach. Now take a look at what is being illuminated on these trees, and then I'll show you the daylight image and see if you can notice, I kind of see where that light was. It's actually altering the natural cycle of the trees and the hibernation cycles. You can see the other trees have lost their leaves, whereas the trees underneath the light have not. This stresses trees out. It actually can cause unhealthy behavior and actually a lack of hibernation before they need to. And it actually causes downstream effects. And also you think about the ecosystem of anything that lives in those trees, any animals or pollinators, insects and things like that are also going to have a altered environment, which is never really a good thing. Now, mention all these things about the ecological impacts on other animals. Well, one of the animals we're all very concerned about as well are us. Now, when you have light trespass and you're actually having light shine into a window, for example, from this happens to be an apartment I used to live in Chicago, where this is second floor, and the street light was literally shining straight into the light into the room. Now, I had the wherewithal and the knowledge to put blackout curtains in. Now, that actually can give us an environment that is not impacted at night by light trespass. But you can imagine all those people who don't even think about it. They just accept that maybe light at night in their room is it's just something you accept as in an urban environment. But the problem is this is serious downstream effects. We are once again part of that biological system of days and nights of billions of years of evolution. And what happens is there's a chemical cycle that you've probably heard about, the circadian rhythms that are actually driven by our perception of light. And in fact, we're very sensitive to blue light can trigger or alter, I should say, our circadian rhythm with more than warmer colored lights. But just any amount of light at night can actually change this whole system of circadian cycles in our body. And that has serious downstream effects. It's actually been connected to many negative health outcomes. Well, we think about the reason why we have light at night is so we can actually have activity, we can have like economy and things like that happening beyond just daytime hours. But once again, I always make the argument that if it's done well, then it actually improves our abilities to use the night productively and efficiently and effectively. But but safety is always that first thing that comes up in our minds, and maybe in decision makers saying, well, we do need these lights for safety, right? Well, just to give you an example of light done wrong, actually not only it can actually impact in a negative way the safety. Now, I use this example, and unfortunately, I'm not sure if Adam is with us, but he is the creepy guy that's hiding in the shadows. I don't know if you can see him, but let's see. Oops. There we go. Now, if we hide the glare of the light, suddenly we see, oh, there was someone standing there the entire time. So just because you have light in an environment, if it's not done right, it's not going to actually, um, uh, be beneficial like you're thinking it should for safety purposes. Well shielded, well done light is actually what we should be striving for. I'm going to skip forward to, sorry about this, some of the solutions, some of the ideas. I've just tried to don't have too much time, but I just wanted to touch on the idea that uh, the way we use light can benefit us, but if it's done wrong, it's actually quite a dramatic harm. But there are solutions, and it's Dark Sky International a few years ago, working with Illinois, the Illuminating Engineering Society, came up with what we call the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting. And what those do is they guide practice of using light with just 5 simple things. And they're also ranked, by the way, in order of the importance and the positive impact they can have. So, for example, useful. If we have a light, if we have in a situation where we think, oh, let's just put some light there, it's like, should we actually even use it? Quite often, we'll see examples of parking lots after curfews or areas that are unused, or, for example, extravagant lighting just for, I don't know what purpose, and a lot of residential lighting. And if you make the choice, like make or actually ask the question, is this light actually necessary? Quite often you say, you know what, it really isn't needed. But if you are going to need that light, if you do have to use that light, let's make sure that it's targeted. And targeted means either well shielded, so it's actually hitting the surfaces that it needs to, and only the place that it needs to be lit. So some examples of poor lighting that is going beyond what's supposed to be lit. The example I showed earlier of a bedroom. There's uplighting from and lighting in commercial areas, and billboards, like I said, tend to be very bad. And so as long as that light is actually shining in the right place, it should be okay. Now, the next thing is, well, if you do have light, and you do need the light, and you got it shining in the right place, do you need that much? Sometimes giving your eyes, just like you think about that example of blocking the light and seeing the person standing in the shadows, if you have too much light, it's actually adapting our eyes to daylight vision. Once you start doing that, you're now blind to the shadows. So the amount of light should actually be limited. I worked with the town of Wheaton on a test of some of their residential lighting ordinances to see, like, can they actually address some complaints they had. One of the town council person's houses we used as an example. We took the lights that were outside his house and dropped them by about 1/3 of the voltage. So 3 times less light. And now I'm going to show you the comparison. This is the before, and this is the after. So we're actually seeing is less light, and hopefully you can kind of see that difference. Less light actually gives your eyes a better chance to be able to see the full scene. They're not blinded by high level light. And then controlled is really important. Modern LED lighting and modern lighting systems have many, many possibilities for dimming, for timing, for motion sensing, many other kinds of uses of network controls, lighting level controls. And just to give you an example, this is once again outside the planetarium, where there are a lot of excessive lights. But when we have telescope observation times, where we're going to have the public be able to go to our telescope terrace over on the left there, we can actually dim the lights or turn off the lights. And I'll be honest, the sky glow, the glow of Chicago, is almost more than enough to be able to navigate with. And then finally, the fifth uh, principle of responsible outdoor lighting is about the color of the light. Remember what I mentioned earlier about blue light being particularly triggering to in disrupting our circadian rhythms. So that is the AMA in 2016 actually came out with a position saying try to reduce the amount of blue light in your lighting. So this is a little bit of a complex slide, but I just wanted to say that the takeaway is the bluer the light goes, the more it becomes like daylight. In fact, above 3000 Kelvin, Kelvin is a color temperature indicator in a sense. Above 3000 Kelvin, you're actually telling your body, you're telling your internal senses of your eyes that it's daylight. And so your body is working as though it's in a daylight environment. So definitely, you definitely want to avoid any exterior lighting that is above 3000 Kelvin. So in that bluer zone. On the left, down, high pressure sodium lights are about 1800 K, just to let you know that, give you a sense of scale on that. And an incandescent bulb you might have in the old school bulbs is about 27 or 2500. So we know that there are some bad examples of lighting. There's lighting that's excessive, unneeded, but there are actual, like I showed in Berlin as an example, there are really good examples of how lighting can actually be done well once it's thoughtful. And once it's designed in a way that can actually be not only effective, but also an improvement of a nighttime environment. I just want to give you, I was at a conference last year to finish up here in Austria, where it's in the state of Upper Austria. So it's an equivalent of like a state in the United States. And they, a few years ago, passed passed ordinance that extinguishes all streetlights after 11 p.m. And I was like, I couldn't believe that it could actually be done. But they do it. The head of their Department of Energy or Department of Environment mentioned that, there was some pushback once it started happening. But then within a few months, he said people like really enjoyed it. People really said, you know what, this is fine. In fact, I just took a picture one night, and then later in the night when the light turned off, it looked like this. I'm not sure if you can see that, but you can actually see the Milky Way from downtown in this town we were in. And it just made a dramatic difference. And they've seen no increase in car accidents. They've seen no increase in crime. It's actually just sort of part of the environment now. And I mentioned them because they released, I forgot to mention, if you have a phone, I can also share this link with you later. They actually did a really interesting informational book and a study that sort of for education for their inhabitants, that so they can explain why they're doing this and what it's about. And it's a few years old, but it's still, the content in it is very good for a municipality because obviously that's what exactly they were intending to do with this book. And I just wanted to finish up by saying that last year, we worked with Senator Laura Ellman to pass legislation in Illinois that is our first attempt at least kind of getting this addressed and on the radar in Illinois. And it's actually the legislation is, I think, Edith, you were going to share maybe some information about that. Addresses just Department of Natural Resources lands for Illinois. It's in a sense that first step of like getting this on the radar of decision makers in the state. So what it does is says that if the Department of Natural Resources is installing or retrofitting light in Illinois, it has to comply with dark sky principles, kind of those 5 principles I mentioned before. And we have one more, we're also working on another piece of legislation hopefully in the next year or two, that is going to actually, the idea of it is giving, in a sense, like home rule, in a sense, to communities. So, for example, Homer Glen and Hawthorne Woods are two dark sky communities in Illinois. If the Department of Transportation, Illinois Department of Transportation controlled roads, we're going to have lighting on them. The legislation would give those communities the option of saying we would like dark sky uh, sensitive lighting in our community. So that's the idea, and would also apply to protected lands and things like that. With that, I'm going to David, would you be interested in? Could you share your screen? I apologize. I'm having a little bit of technical issues with my computer's battery is not charging, so I don't want it to go out while we're in the middle of this. Or and Kevin or Edith, did you?
Yeah, I've got a few words. Ken, that's fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. The photos are incredible.
Hmm.
I know everyone else appreciates it very much. Our next speaker, of course, is David Barkus, Dark Sky Chicago chapter co-founder. David graduated from the University of Illinois, Urbana with a BS in biology and an MBA. He's the former VP of operations at Sunstar Americas, where he worked for, ready for this, 31 years before retiring a mere 4 years ago. He is, in his own words, an amateur astronomer and an orchid grower. So, my good friend David, the floor is all yours. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you for being with us.
Hey, Dave, I think I should be okay with the slides. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I'll undo what I started to do. Okay. Hopefully you can all hear me.
Absolutely.
What I am suggesting is, if you are inclined, things that you can do as a municipality to move this idea along. Let's go to the first thing, which would be leading by example. I start a project, include all of the lighting that is the responsibility of the municipality, and with the goal of bringing that into compliance with dark sky principles over a fixed period of time. Communicate the objectives to all of your business community and your residents. And as an example, you state that you're going to develop and execute a lighting plan that incorporates the 5 principles. You're going to start by X date, complete by Y date. Often it's a 5-year period. And strive to eliminate sky glow, glare, light trespass, while improving safety and security as you maximize your cost savings, utilizing all the technologies that are available, timers, dimmers, motion detection, and network solutions as appropriate. Update your community every 3 to 6 months about progress that you're making. Next slide, please. And you can set specifications that are very specific, but cover the issues. You want to convert your lighting to fully shield wherever possible. Fully shield is a description of lighting that is not only full cutoff, but it's got mechanical shrouds. If you're using full cutoff for installation, you have to make sure that somewhere you understand that it has to be mounted parallel to the ground to minimize sky glow. And when you're selecting the lights, it's important that you look at the specification of the bug rating, which is backlight, uplight, and glare, so that in the situation, you know, you're minimizing, you're using the appropriate light to minimize glare and or trespass. When you choose controls of the lighting, there's 2 possibilities that you should stick with. Photocell controls, either being what's described as 5-pin or 7-pin. They both allow you to control dimming. 5-pin is a minimum for dimming, but if you have 7-pin, you can migrate as time or occasion allows to smart system control. When you select the fixtures, make sure that they operate to 10% of maximum. This allows optimal dimming capabilities. When you select color, as Ken mentioned, we suggest 2700 Kelvin or warmer, noting that high pressure sodium is 1800, so it's much warmer than much of the lighting that has replaced it. And retrofit any municipal lighting that are uplights with downlights when possible. If you can, turn off all lighting after normal business hours that are not required for safety, and dim all the lights that are required for safety as guided by standards. Most dimming examples have been somewhere between 30 and 50%. Some exceed that, but that's kind of the standard. Next. This is a brief example of lighting. On the left is example of unacceptable or discouraged lighting because it provides all the things we don't want: uplight, glare. On the right would be some full cutoff examples and fully shielded. And the fully shielded, you can see that the light is actually inside of the mechanical shield, and it makes sure all the light is directed at an angle downward. The next slide is talking about education, which on an overview of education, we would like that for all businesses and residents, you include the idea of dark principles supported by your examples. You stress the benefits of good lighting. You provide educational materials for them, and we have plenty on our website, darksky.org. And you highlight all the examples of good lighting in your community, and you add more to that as you can, and it's reinforcing the idea of that you're trying to achieve. Next. For businesses, we would start with stressing that fully shielded lights, where possible, are key. If they're going to use full cutoff, we stress installation parallel to the ground. There's many examples of business parking lots where the mounting is on an angle to maximize coverage or shine on the building's facade that generates sky glow, glare, and often light trespass. We stress that business parking lights be turned off 1 hour after business to eliminate wasted light and reduce light pollution. Some businesses wanted to keep their lights on after close, and for this option, maximizing their use of dimming will save them significant money and reduce light pollution. Example, if they reduce the light levels by 50% after hour, they'll get about an approximate reduction in cost of that 50%, and it will double the life expectancy from those hours dimmed by 50%. As alternative to dusk to dawn lighting, we suggest motion detection with camera use. Dusk to dawn lighting does little but waste energy and provide sufficient light for would-be burglars. Motion detection lights provide surprise, and the cameras offer complete recording of events. We stress the same controls that as you use for municipal lights, and we stress the same colors that you use for municipal lights. This is an example of a parking light where the lights were mounted on an angle not parallel to the ground. You can see the glares everywhere and the light shines everywhere. The next slide shows a change in the way those lights are mounted. The visibility is improved and the glare is dramatically reduced for the whole area. So visibility is much better. For residents, again, stressing fully shielded lights that minimize glare and light trespass onto neighboring properties. Stressing that 2700 LEDs are good, but 2200 LEDs are even better. They produce every reduction in that Kelvin provides more long wavelength and less blue wavelength, which reduces the glare and reduces the impact on nighttime pollinators and really all the negative effects of artificial light at night. We again, for residents, stress turning off the lights at 10 or 11 p.m. or when they go to bed. We do stress motion detection lighting instead of dusk to dawn, with an option for camera to enhance the installations. And as your municipality gains momentum in the dark sky effort, we consider that you should develop ordinances that are specific to responsible outdoor lighting. Codify your program to support your effort. It ensures that new development is consistent with your goals, and it allows enforcement of your goals for maximum results. You modify your educational materials to support your ordinance, and if that is not enough and you want to go further, we suggest you consider becoming a dark sky community. So that's just a few examples. And with that, I'm done.
A few very good examples.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to talk about getting lighting right. Our good friend Devin Wall is the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. He's an ambassador for that organization and a founding member of Lighting and Darkness Foundation, a 501c3 organization dedicated to responsible outdoor lighting. Devin also served as a volunteer firefighter for 10 years. Very cool, and thank you for your service. He's going to talk to us about energy efficiency, safety, night preservation, and darkness restoration, fixtures for municipalities, and all that good stuff. Devin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for having us on. Really just nice, exciting topic for you guys at the municipal level, what to do. I've been involved in lighting for basically my whole life. And this is something near and dear to my heart is, there's preserving darkness and the darkness restoration, preserving the night. Ken and Dave just did a fantastic job of why would not do that, but let's take this into practicality of what you guys have to think about from a municipal outdoor lighting standpoint, the kind of the do's and don'ts. We're going to talk about replacing the entire fixture heads, replacing existing light source with the screw-in LED bulb or a universal retrofit kit, and then the upgrading existing fixtures with dedicated LED retrofit kits. So replacing the fixture head. This is something that's kind of fun for everybody to do at the municipal level is that if you're going to change a new head, you got to pick the new style that you got to go onto. Dark Sky International does a great job of showing approved products for the types of applications you're going to do to be dark sky compliant fixtures. However, if you're talking Cobra heads over roadways and arterial streets, that's a little simpler version versus these more decorative, higher dollar items from these large cones and bell-shaped Hershey Kisses fixtures, wherever part of the country you're in. Everybody calls them different. And these decorative ornamental post-top fixtures as well. These are things you got to decide as a municipality. What are we going to do with? What's the vibe? We have our historical heritage to think about. Are we going to do that loss of character? Taking out a fixture that's been in the town since 1906. Some of these things out there are things to consider what you're doing. You're also looking at these higher upfront costs, especially for these decorative type of arm-mounted luminaires, where you're going to see these have a really high dollar amount. And then you also think about the additional environmental impact of taking everything down and taking the time to take it apart and recycle all the components properly. And just other things to go about. Going with the new fixture head is totally cool in way, but it sometimes can be cumbersome in a long drawn out process to go through and choose the right fixture to adapt to you guys' municipality or township. Let's talk about replacing the light source with the screw-in bulb or universal retrofit kit. So these are going to be your lower initial investment costs with the minimal labor. And, sometimes it's a less expensive short-term solution where you just kind of change the power and screw it into the existing. It's going to be more of a short-term fix with poor performance. Part of this dark sky principle, we're looking at that fitted target efficacy, which is delivering the light where it needs to be, not wasting these watts and lumens, illuminating things that don't need to be lit up. You're talking, lighting was invented, outdoor lighting, for pedestrians to be safe when the cars are out there to show pedestrians. So you're thinking a lot of these areas, the street I live on, there are no sidewalks, there are no streetlights. And so, looking at these things out there is why to do this, but going to a solution that is a kind of a one size fits all approach, and like, hey, this is LED, it's efficient, it goes in here. A lot of these aren't intended for that application, and you're not getting that right target efficacy delivered in these all-in-one kits. And so you're limited on customization. And then you also have compliance issues with dark sky. Maybe in one fixture it's okay, and the next fixture it's bad. So in also looking at what different types of Kelvin temperatures that are available. Cool little side note on Kelvin temperatures. That is actually created back in the day on how hot an iron ore got in a oven. So when you see these lower Kelvin temperatures at 2200 Kelvin, that's how the glowing piece of metal looked in that oven. And then when you get up to 6500, that thing is bright white and blue. That's that higher one going out there. So, like Ken mentioned, this Dr. Mario Mata that put out this blue light at night is bad. The Apple adapted that right away. Your phone automatically at a certain time at night turns off the blue light emissions because they know that it suppresses the melatonin production when you're at nighttime following the circadian rhythm of being a human. So these are all things that play into effect of what we're trying to do out there. Now let's look at some of these solutions that are just slapped up in there. You've got these corncob lamps that are leaning on the side. Things like low frequency vibration wind can cause it go down. Here's an acorn teardrop fixture where the screw-in lamp was touching the bottom of the globe and just poorly illuminated throughout the whole area. Some of this time, you're just gonna get a blob of light right below the fixture, not spreading out wide and far where you need it to go. So you're just kind of wasting your money making the light fixture glow poorly and creating a bad environment. You look at some of these other, quote unquote, universal retrofit kits that fit anywhere. They're tucked away in the corner. There's no really way to direct or get the beam, the optics to get delivered on what you're trying to do and accomplish. Quick fix, I want to piece something and get it done, but usually on these, you're not going to have the lower Kelvin temperatures, 3000 or below. Sometimes 3000 might be the lowest, but you want to get down to that high pressure sodium, low pressure sodium look of 1900 Kelvin. There are LEDs that can accomplish that out there. So let's look at one of these corncob lamps. We took it in the goniometer where it measures this light distribution pattern. And here you can see this 90-degree. Everything up here is sky glow going up into the atmosphere. And that's another thing too, is when you're looking at what type of light is used out there, blue wavelengths travel farther and faster than any other color in the visible light spectrum. So this is just, a poor thing of, hey, we got it done quick. You're not getting that right lamp center length where the actual fixture looks good. So this is just, it got done quickly. Upgrading your fixture with a dedicated LED retrofit kit. Now, this is something you're looking at more of these decorative fixtures. It can be adapted anywhere. There are dozens of companies out there, making products like this, but it's going to be a little bit more cost effective with that aesthetic preservation of these decorative fixtures that have been a main staple of your municipalities for a while. And so it's also more affordable, and usually electricians, either in-house or hired out, these guys like that solution. The time was taken to develop a professional solution to get in there, which also helps you by reducing waste using the existing housings where you're only recycling the guts of the old fixture, popping in with new. And that's where you can get this proven reliability in testing, where you're looking for these companies that have done all these testings, vibration testing, the LM79, everything out there. I'm going to give you guys a checklist of what to look for in there. But your customization and compliance going down to this 1900 Kelvin is adaptable. And that's also, looking at your tailored optimal performance, looking at your street lights and how it was done back in the day, where you're looking everything's off a high pressure sodium or metal halide spacing. Sometimes you'll have these dark spots in there. Well, there's ways to stretch out the light to adapt these, kind of dark spots to get a more evenly lit arterial road. Softer compliance within the residential streets as well to deliver something that actually makes a difference and improves the lighting scenario without being too harsh or glary out there. And that's just, you're just kind of future proofing yourself and looking at these dark sky compliance and friendly applications out there where you can do these different distribution types of the lighting to adapt to these situations and improve on what you already have in your existing infrastructure. Here are some of these dedicated retrofit kits going out there. These are more thought out. They're designed for the application. They go in there. How do we know that? Let's check out this one fixture here. You're looking at, this is an induction lamp, and you can see these high peaks and spikes of the wavelengths going out there. And look at the LED as a nice soft, more gradual, but also look here, 92 watts reduced. Major energy savings going out of this municipality right here, reducing this, going to a dedicated solution that operates down to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, because that minus 40 is the same. Here's, this is actually from Elk Grove Village. These guys went to a 2200 Kelvin dedicated LED retrofit kit solution. You can see here on the right, this is the color of the original high pressure sodium lamp and how crazy and chaotic the light looks in there. And here's the LED solution, more rounded out, full color, which means you have, even under cameras, you're gonna get better visibility of things at night with this. And you're looking at this even nice distribution coming out of the fixture. This is where the pole would be, where you see that dip up. So the base of this fixture is blocking that, but it's hitting around the base of the pole and illuminating that and stretching out towards the street. This is a type 5 distribution where it's kind of all the way around. Type 3 is limiting the back and then pushing more forward and down towards that street side. But again, looking at another 62 watts reduced per fixture on average. They had a mix of 150 and 100 watt high pressure sodiums. And the one unit that they had tested was a 150 watt lamp and a 100 watt ballast. So you ended up with 120 watts. Here's a ways. So these are all other light charts for looking at these acorn style globes. This one does not have any shroud on top, but you're able to control this minimal uplight. So anything above this 90 degree is uplight, but you can look, this is the backside. The blue line is the backside towards the house where you're kind of just illuminating that sidewalk, stretching the light all the way across and illuminating the roadway perfectly and ideally. Same here. This one was a little bit, looking at this thing's got a nice aluminum top on there, so limited sky glow. But again, tailoring these optics to get there to deliver this type 3 distribution along the residential and arterial streets in these cities and municipalities. How can you guys take advantage of this? This is pulled from ComEd's website. They're doing $1 per watt reduced. And then if you have network lighting controls paired with these solutions from a brand new fixture to a dedicated retrofit kit, you're getting 50 cents per watt control on top of it. So this is a really good, advantage to take care of and go for, and look at doing the right thing. What's good for your municipality and township is something that you want to take advantage of and looking. But here's this kind of checklist to show you what to look for in choosing an LED solution upgrading. Is that you want to match that existing CCT or drive down lower this lower Kelvin temperature where you got that nice golden glow, making sure you can be able to pick their CRI, getting that right lamp center length so you get that targeted efficacy delivered. The LM79 report, this is something light fixture manufacturers submit where you're going to get the color testing, the photometric report to show you where the light's going, and the in situ temperature testing is going to show you the temperature of the LEDs and the driver to give you the lifetime output, which typically in a lot of the newer solutions, you see the L70 where 30% of the life is gone being over 100,000 hours. Paired up with a good power supply, that solution is going to last you forever. And this is something a couple generations can then figure out down there. You also want to look at this vibration testing to see if they're compliant with that. You're looking at these corncob lamps. Those things are 2-3 pounds sitting on a porcelain socket that's made to hold a glass lamp. Those don't last that long. That's why you see them on the side. You got to look for the network lighting controls capability, that 7 and 5 pin receptacles to do all these cool network lighting control to say, hey, at 12 o'clock, we're going to go down to 50%. At 2 a.m., we're going to take that down to 25% and really squeeze every penny of savings out of there. With that, your distributions, you're looking for the types 2, 3, 4, and 5. No moving parts, kind of limiting the fans out of there. And then make sure it's night preservation, darkness restoration compliant. And that is it.
That is it. That's it, Devin? No more?
Well, I can keep on going forever, but I figure everybody's got other stuff to do.
Oh, first of all, I believe you may be the very first ever presenter at an Energy and Environment Committee meeting that stood the whole time via Zoom. So congratulations. Fascinating information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin, we have a couple of questions, mostly from me, just to be
Sure, fire
obnoxious
away.
here. So Devin, I was really interested in the ComEd incentives. Can you talk a little bit about how to learn about those in advance? And yeah, so if a municipality is looking at a retrofit, how do they make sure that they both maximize their lighting efficiency and then look at those incentives?
Yeah, great question. So what you want to do, the first thing that when you're talking to ComEd, they want a pre-approval. So get with your electrical contractors, your electrical distributors, or lighting manufacturers, agents, to go out there and request that you want to, look at an energy upgrade and lighting upgrade for your municipality. And that's all going to be the pre-application is pretty simple. What are we putting in? What are we taking out? I mean, Elk Grove Village, they had, 672-ish 150 watt HPS, and then they had 580 of the 100 watt HPS. Looking at both those, you put them down. What's going in there with the 58 watt kit? It tells you how many watts are getting reduced, and then the online portal basically takes care of itself to show you how much money you're getting back in incentives. And I know Ken is working on stuff also to get additional bonuses on dark sky compliant, with Amarin and these other, energy companies out there. So, I mean, this is all stuff pushing forward is what we want to do. I'd be more than happy to put in touch with people going out, but anybody that's handling and covering your account, going out there from any electrical distributor and contractor, you can reach out to them and they should have a champion on their team to help you get through that scenario.
Thank you.
Anything else, Edith?
No, thanks. There's some just answers in the chat. Thank you, Ken,
Okay,
for
good.
answering those. And then Devin, if you want to share a link about just the right places to go for those incentives or to find a good contractor, please share that in the chat when you have a chance.
Yeah, I'll throw that in there.
Thank you again, sir.
Sure.
Welcome.
And now we have the pleasure of learning from two of our friends who have dark sky communities. First and foremost, our friends from Homer Glen. Say hello to Taylor Udarbe. She is the village planner, environment committee staff liaison, and dark sky staff contact for the Village of Homer Glen. And Taylor, I know you're going to share with us how and why Homer Glen became Illinois' first dark sky community, international dark sky community. We welcome you and thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So today, yeah, like you said, I'm just gonna go through a bit of our history, how we got to our dark sky community status. A bit of a background, we are a fairly young community. We only incorporated in 2001 with the motto Community, Nature, and Harmony. I won't read the whole mission statement, but essentially we were seeking incorporation to control our development, save our natural resources, and preserve rural elements of our community. It's important to note that when we applied for the dark sky community, we were looking to prove through our ordinance and our practices that we wouldn't pollute the night sky with unnecessary lighting. We weren't a preserve, we were not dark. We had established commercial areas, established residential subdivisions, all with lighting already. So our goals for our lighting ordinance, these were the ones identified in the original workshop for our 2007 lighting ordinance. We were looking for safety enhancement, energy conservation, dark sky protection, environmental protection, nuisance abatement, beautification, and establishing standards for development. And so these standards were light intensity, light distribution, procedural requirements for new developments, and design requirements for light fixtures and installations. Like I said, our first ordinance was passed in 2007 for adoption, but it began shortly after incorporation. We started working on our lighting ordinance, so it did take around a good 5 to 6 years of work. We based this largely off of Flagstaff, Arizona's lighting ordinance, but from input based on reviews of consultants, lighting engineers, dark sky experts, our village attorney, village staff, and members of the lighting subcommittee and Parks and Environment Committee, we were able to get this passed. Most importantly, what was identified in our ability to pass this was education on dark sky principles. Like I said, we did base this off of Flagstaff or Arizona's, so it wasn't like we were having to pull together all of this new information or new ordinance templates and everything, but the idea of dark sky and Dark Sky International was so new at the time. So it really was important that for our outdoor lighting ordinance and dark sky community status, we were hosting community workshops, constantly updating our village board of trustees on the status of our ordinance, installing sample lighting installations in the village so that our trustees and residents can go out and see what it looks like on the ground. And then just continuing education, and we do host 2 stargazing events at Village Hall here every year. And this is just some example of some of the information that we hand out at our stargazing events on our dark skies and lighting fixtures. And then in 2011, we became the world's 4th international dark sky community. We were the first community located in the halo of a large metropolitan area, so that was really cool. And then we also had the first standalone lighting ordinance in Illinois. And then we were granted this designation to act as a positive example to neighbors. Like I said, we are located in a large metropolitan area. We're not really dark. We're not preserve. Being a dark sky community is all about trying to tell your neighbors to also follow these same guidelines. And then this is our timeline of our public lighting retrofitting. Before we even were granted dark sky community status in 2010, we started installing sample Flatlands Cobra streetlights around the village so that, like I said, trustees and residents can go around and see what these were going to look like. And plans for our upcoming upgrade plans. And then in 2010 was phase 1 of the retrofitting. We replaced 180 street lights with flat lens Cobra head
I've got
luminaires.
about 11:30 now.
Oh, okay.
Oh. And then that RFP for phase 1 was approved for $48,600. This project came in under budget and we spanned that across 2 fiscal years. 2013, where these photos are from, we replaced 139 street lighting fixtures with GE Salem post top fixtures. That RFP was approved at $71,505, and it came from our other capital projects budget. And then in 2015, we replaced 96 fixtures with the same GE Salem post-top fixtures, and that RFP was approved for $62,188, and that came from our motor fuel tax fund. And then 2016 to present, looking back at the history, I've not been here that long for this, but it looked like we were budgeting from around 2016 to 2020 $100,000 for the next phase of streetlight upgrades. And then because of staff turnover and then ultimately COVID, those updates never happened. And then around the same time too, our lighting contractor informed the village they would no longer manufacture high pressure sodium light fixtures, which is what we had been installing in these retrofits. And then also at the same time, our environment committee had concerns about our code's 3000 Kelvin LED lights, which is interesting seeing this in the chat right now also. Our environment committee did ultimately propose upgrades. You can see here we also installed these samples. Our committee wanted PC Amber, and those were really hard to get even for this demo. So that code update ultimately died. It didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. But we are still looking into this. We had other examples here as well. And then for code compliance, obviously like applicability, all zoning lots in existing zoning districts and in all zoning districts that shall be created. And then we also have conformance requirements for all of our existing developments. We have criteria for compliance for luminaire or light installation removal or replacement, or criteria requiring full compliance or complete removal. These photos here are an example from a church addition. Their building footprint expanded by 25% of the building floor area. So they were required to bring all of their building mounted lighting into compliance. It was just security lighting, so it was already fully shielded, but they did just end up having to change out the bulbs and install a photocell timer. And then we don't have any compliance deadlines or amortization clause in our outdoor lighting ordinance. What's existing can exist until it needs to be repaired or replaced, and that's where we would, I guess, get them for conformance. And then other than code wise, we do have a few incentives in the village for updating lighting. Um, Early on, we hosted a Starry Night Award for local businesses that developed under the new ordinance. We had Eagle Rock Community Church, Firestone Auto Care, Midland Federal Bank, and then Silver Cross. All of these developed with our new lighting ordinance in compliance with this ordinance. And then we do have an annual Community Nature and Harmony Awards to recognize individuals, businesses, groups, or community organizations who demonstrate commitment to the environment and in the process significantly contribute to community pride. That could be for a number of things. Obviously, lighting upgrades would significantly help our environment. And then we also have a commercial building improvement grant program. Um, this is for reimbursements of up to 50% of approved costs with a maximum grant award of $5,000, and eligible improvements include exterior lighting upgrades consistent with the village code. And then here are just some links and my contact information if anyone has questions or wants to reach out. I have a ton of saved materials from the history of when we were getting our lighting ordinance updated and adopted and everything that I can share with people if they want. But otherwise, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
quick questions or pressing questions, Edith, you want to address now, or should we invite our friend from Westmont to speak?
We are good on time, so we welcome questions, but we might want to wait until after Krista, and then we'll take questions for the entire panel. So
Sounds good. Krista Stanoulis, Westmont Environmental Improvement Committee member for the last 7 years, is going to talk to us about messaging and community education regarding, and of course, dark sky grant programs. Krista has experience in architecture and with projects pursuing LEED certification. She has a particular interest in impact of the built world has on the environment. Krista, welcome. Thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Burns and Director Macra for having me today. Hello, everyone. Sure. All right, let me put this up. All right.
Looks good.
For anyone who is not familiar with the Village of Westmont, we're a village in southwest suburbs of Chicago, which was originally established along the Chicago-Burlington-Quincy Railroad line, now obviously named BNSF. The village was incorporated in 1921, so we just celebrated our 100-year anniversary 4 years ago, and we currently have a population of just under 24,000. A few of our more famous residents include Muddy Waters, who spent the last 10 years of his life in Westmont, and Ty Warner Incorporated, whose headquarters for Beanie Babies International is in Westmont. And I neglected to add one more very important Westmont native. Edith Macra, Director of Environmental Initiatives for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, is also a former Westmont resident.
Wow, well played. Nicely done.
A little bit about our EIC. The Westmont Environmental Committee or Commission began in the 1990s, and in 2018, this was converted to a special committee under the Board of Trustees. The committee currently consists of 9 appointed volunteer members, including 2 village trustees who chair and co-chair the committee and do a wonderful job of keeping the environmental issues in front of our village board, as well as the Westmont Public Library Assistant Director and Village Communications Director, who acts as our staff liaison. Committee meetings are also regularly attended by Westmont's Assistant Village Manager and Public Works personnel, which has been a great setup and very conducive to collaboration between all of these parties. So just a quick overview of some of Westmont's environmental initiatives. These include Soul Smart certification, which we just recently upgraded to silver certification, our No Mow Till Mother's Day program, Richmond Education Garden, which is a collaboration between the Village of Westmont and Clarendon Hills to provide residents with a place to learn about natural and organic gardening methods, our annual Monarch Festival, pumpkin composting, electronics and more special recycling events, which we do biannually, the installation of Monarch waste stations, and conservation of open lands to native plantings, particularly as a means to improve stormwater retention areas, tree seedling giveaway and Oktoberfest, Parkway Tree Replacement Program, which focuses on tree species diversity and native trees. Westmont also recently started a tree planting incentive program for residents as a means to encourage residents to plant preferred trees on their private properties to increase species diversity and overall tree canopy. And of course, our Dark Sky Education and Awareness Initiative and Dark Sky Grant Program. The importance of preserving our dark sky for both human health and the environment has been one of our initiatives for about the past 6 years. Similar to other communities, we don't require businesses and residents to make lighting changes at this time, but we're doing our best to raise awareness within the village and in the community to encourage people to make more environmentally responsible choices when it comes to outdoor lighting. If people don't realize there's a problem to begin with, they won't be able to be a part of the solution, is how we've kind of approached it. So we began our educational efforts through public outreach. We've set up booths at local school science fairs, community open houses, summer cruising nights, which is our weekly car show from June to August. We've done multiple presentations to community groups and the village board to educate trustees and village staff about the reasons it's important to protect our dark skies and what strategies are necessary to move in a better, more environmental conscious direction. The Westmont EIC has put together messaging with key points we aim to convey. As residential exterior light conversion is much different project scale compared to a commercial or municipal project, we've created separate messaging for both residents and commercial or municipal projects. So here I'm showing the dark sky messaging for residents. So the residential messaging is intended to keep things pretty simple, focusing on 4 major areas. Only light when and where needed. So consider how many lights you need outdoors, turn off outdoor lights when not needed, or install timers or motion sensors. I just want to note here that while photo sensors do conserve energy by turning off lights during daylight hours if you've left them on, motion sensors and timers are preferable from a dark sky standpoint to photo sensors because those do leave the lights on all night, and with timers and motion sensors you can actually control that. Number 2, be no brighter than necessary. This gives guidelines for preferred wattage. While we made the switch to LEDs a while ago now, we find that residents still seem to have a better feel for what the incandescent wattages mean in terms of light output. So we've listed this along with the LED equivalents. Number 3, only light the intended target. So install fixtures that fully shield the light bulb. So when we talk about full cutoff, I noted that somebody asked this in the chat, but full cutoff basically means that you're not directing any light horizontally or above the horizontal plane. So basically all light is directed in a downward direction. And number 4, minimize blue light emissions. We find in talking to residents that many don't know what the Kelvin temperature means when buying a new light bulb. So we've tried to use terms like soft white or warm white in addition to Kelvin temperature guidelines. Safety is always obviously a concern for residents, so a lot of our education on the residential side is about how maintaining lower wattage and installing fixtures that hide the exposed bulb or LED diodes can actually improve safety, in that it greatly reduces the amount of glare. For commercial and municipal projects, our biggest message is to consider lighting selection in the early planning phase of a new project and to choose light fixtures not based solely on their daytime aesthetic, but rather on their performance and the nighttime aesthetic. For our first key point here, brightness and uniformity, it's important to do photometric plans to ensure that the illumination targets are being achieved, as well as the uniformity ratios. So the uniformity of lighting is important to reduce glare so you don't have hot spots. I think it was illustrated previously by Ken. Photometric plans provide a digital simulation of the light output for each light fixture. By setting the fixture location and the height of the proposed light fixtures, you're able to see how these lights are all going to work together to meet the target illumination levels and uniformity ratios. So a sample photometric here is on the left to show what that looks like with the different light locations, the calculations for average and max illumination, as well as the uniformity ratios, how that all comes together and how you can see the individual points and what the illumination levels are at each point throughout the site. The additional 3 points here for the commercial side are light direction, timing, and color temperature. These are similar to those for the residential guidelines, with some additional information on the light shielding, as municipal and commercial lighting has potential to be a lot closer to property lines. One other point I just wanted to note, and this isn't something that's explicitly included in the IDA guidelines, it's something that we've been noted by residents and by the village in Westmont when we began converting our overhead streetlights to LEDs. LEDs are very directional in nature, meaning an exposed array of diodes will cast multiple beams of lights in various directions based on the positioning of the diodes, but this is much different than the glow of light that we're used to with incandescents or the high pressure sodiums or mercury vapor. It's something that has been noted by residents and just something to take into consideration when you're looking at new fixtures. Consideration should be given to how light is being refracted to create a more even glow and reduce glare. More dark sky fixtures are coming into the market that have horizontal lenses to reflect the light. So again, in the horizontal plane and not in the vertical plane lenses. Some fixtures are engineered to hide the direct view of diodes entirely by reflecting the light within the housing before it's emitted. And for this reason, in addition to photometrics, we always recommend it's important to see samples of installed light fixtures to make sure that the quality of light is in line with what's expected. And then to build on our educational initiatives, in 2023, Westmont began offering a new dark sky grant opportunity to residents and businesses. The goal of the program is to incentivize Westmont residents and businesses to consider changes to their properties that will reduce or even eliminate unnecessary light pollution. It's also an additional opportunity to educate residents and businesses about the impact of outdoor lighting and to provide resources and guidelines for best practices. The program information, along with an online application, is posted on the Village of Westmont website. Applicants complete the initial online application, which includes details regarding their intended dark sky purchase. Items that may be reimbursed under Westmont Dark Sky Grant Program include full cutoff light fixtures, which meet the light output and color temperature requirements. We don't require that these fixtures be certified by Dark Sky International, but we do encourage applicants to use the Dark Sky website to find appropriate fixture types. Items such as warm temperature light bulbs for fixtures that don't have integral lamps may be reimbursed, as well as timer or motion activated lighting controls and installation costs. The EIC reviews the initial applications to confirm that the proposed purchase complies with the criteria of Westmont's Dark Sky Grant Program, and then the applicant installs the compliant products and submits receipts and photos of the installed products for review, and the final submission is reviewed and approved by the village for reimbursement. The program's been promoted via our community news magazine, on village website, and social media, on 2 digital bulletin boards that we have on Cass Avenue, which is our primary thoroughfare through the downtown, as well as through in-person community engagements events. So far, it's been very well received. On a municipal level, we have a number of streetlights that have been converted to full cutoff. We have installed both 2,700 and 3,000 Kelvin fixtures so that the village and residents can get a feel for the light quality of both. And the village is also in the process of working with a lighting designer to convert a section of our downtown pedestrian lights to dark sky compliant fixtures. So thank you very much for having me again. We're excited to see the MMC Environment and Energy Committee take on this important topic. It's great to bring it in the mainstream conversation.
Thank you very much. Look at that, folks. We're mainstream now. Holy moly. Any questions, Edith or Cheryl or Tori, that you want to help navigate for either Krista or Taylor?
We don't have anything in the chat, but I would encourage the speakers to add anything that they might have missed. And if you have questions that you haven't posed yet, please go ahead and raise your hand or put them in the chat. And we've got.
Yeah, I have a silly question that perhaps others are thinking of. Krista and Taylor, for your counsel. A lot of the fixtures we buy for our homes are these decorative things that light shines everywhere. Have you ever experienced people who say, well, I'll take this into my own hands and just cover up those panels on the side so it all shoots down? And is that even effective?
We have not encountered anyone, at least in applying for the program, who has done that. Okay. I know that I've seen some retrofits on the market for the globe type fixtures, the more municipal type fixtures. I don't know how effective those are. I have not seen them actually installed.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it looks kind of schlocky, if I may use that term, but you know.
ComEd actually did that on streetlights outside our home.
Oh, God.
Because they were shining right into our bedroom window. And it's not great, but it's better than it was. They kind of retrofitted a little piece of sheet metal on top of the streetlight.
Yeah, okay. And just for the record, ladies and gentlemen, Devin Wall is now sitting down. Thank you, Devin, for... Oh, you're still standing. What the heck, man?
I like to get my legs, at my desk, I sit down. So when I stand up, I just feel more energized.
I understand.
Standing up. I didn't take a little break, though, Kevin.
Okay. Anybody else wants to share on the residential lighting fixtures?
For me, I've only seen new developments and they have to comply. It's really easy nowadays to be able to get fixtures that comply. Obviously, there are existing homes that have been built with all sorts of lighting. Our code doesn't require anyone to just be brought into compliance, and most people don't know that we have a outdoor lighting ordinance, or that like retrofitting existing lighting might be subject to this. And because we're so young, we have like 2 code enforcement officers. It really would be difficult for us to go around and figure out who's changing what light bulb. But all of the new ones do comply. It's really easy to see on building permits or reviews of new development projects.
Edith, our friend Ben from Naperville had a great question.
Sure.
Ben, you want to join us and ask it yourself, or do you want me to interpret it so that you sound smarter?
Deborah's got a similar comment too, just about the reaction and
just kidding, Ben.
Yeah. Ben's smart, but let's
yes, he is.
Sorry, I have a new laptop I just got yesterday, and I cannot figure out how to unmute. So we've been talking with some folks from local dark sky organizations, and they've been really helpful in giving us some tips and promoting that Naperville looks at this. And one of the areas of pushback I've heard from our public works team and our public safety folks in police is concerns about going too low from a color spectrum or just like amount of light shining, especially on roadways and things like that. There's a concern about public safety. Has anybody else dealt with that pushback?
I see Ken is smiling and raising his hand.
I've worked with a number of municipalities around the country, actually, and that is, you've just pointed out the number one pushback I've heard is especially the color temperature thing, where police and safety officials will claim that a higher color temperature will be better for safety or whatever. And I could tell you there is no evidence that a lower color temperature light provides any less safety. And there's a thing, Devin mentioned it very quickly, called CRI, which is the color rendering index. And this is generally what I've heard from police, for example, is that they want to make sure that if there's a crime and it's caught on video or someone sees it, they want to be able to identify the color of the car or the color of the clothing of the person. And literally, I was working with a town outside of St. Louis that they said, we need this 4,000 Kelvin light because then you can tell which color the, was involved in the crime of the color of the car or something. And I looked at the statistics and the specs of the lighting they were using, and it was a GE model of 4,000K light. There was literally another in the same line of lighting, a 2,700 Kelvin light that had the same color rendering index, which means for our eyes, how well can we distinguish color? Literally, the 4,000 and the 2,700 had the exact color rendering index, which means no difference in the perception of color. So my question is always to the police, show me some evidence that there's, this is going to improve things, and then, let's work from there.
That's helpful. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Sure. So there is another question just about model setting for Taylor. So did you get questions from other cities about how you did it?
I do. I take maybe a few phone calls a year, some emails a year, mostly people asking how we're adopting our lighting ordinance. Most people I feel aren't necessarily, I think we started the same way. We wanted a lighting ordinance and then we wanted to worry about dark sky certification. And I think that's what I see, most people asking how we got our lighting ordinance adopted, what model we used, how long it took. So I'm able to provide that to anyone. I have a bunch of documents from our archives too. So
one other question in the chat that throw this out to the technical people. Maybe it's a Devin question or David. But Jason, do you want to ask your question if you're easy to unmute? Just about working with ComEd.
Yes, I'm curious. We're looking at replacing all our village-owned streetlights with dark sky compliant fixtures over the next couple of years, but like a third of the streetlights in our community are actually owned by ComEd. So I'm curious what we can do to look at trying to bring those into compliance.
Great question.
Kevin, if I could jump in, this is Kim.
Oh, Kim, please do. I was going to recommend just take them down, but you're probably.
Most of our streetlights are owned by ComEd in Highland Park as well. And they retrofitted all of them several years ago. I fought hard to make sure that they were 2,700 Kelvin or less. I was able to get a compromise at 3,000 Kelvin. They are all dark skies compliant, but as I said, they had to shield the one outside of our bedroom window. And then my neighbors saw the shield and wanted that outside theirs as well. So they ended up shielding both those lights. But they are all dark skies compliant, but you just have to make sure that they get the right Kelvin. They're pretty bright. So I've asked them to dim. I know that they have dimming capacity, but our public safety folks are concerned about dimming. But happy to talk offline if you want to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with staff about how they worked with ComEd on them.
Thanks, Kim.
Anyone else?
Ken, do you have a minute you want to share? One more example you wanted to share? Or that I'm kind of prodding you to share on residential lighting?
Oh, yeah, I did skip a few slides.
He skipped a few slides and.
No, it's okay. Ken, if you could please share your personal cell, so we all want to call you. So.
Yeah. Well, it was actually based on we published a study done. We at the Adler Planetarium we've done high altitude balloon flights where we've literally map light emissions from the stratosphere, and then with that regional level data, we can do some analysis. So we've actually discovered that maybe counter to what you believe, we can actually do zonal analysis. These are like blue is residential, yellow is government, and red is commercial, for example. And one of the things that we found was that on the column on the left is the amount of brightness that uh, kind of property type or zoning type emits. And on the right is the amount of land that type of zoning actually takes up. And the thing that I wanted to point out, the two things that are kind of interesting, I think, is number one, street lights, road lighting is actually only about a quarter of the light emissions that we observed. But the number one single largest emitter, mainly because of the amount of land it takes up, is actually residential lighting. So this is what we found in our study. And in some of the work I'm doing with the forest preserves in Cook County, we're analyzing where the light is coming from around the Palos Preserves, which is the world's largest urban night sky place, designated by Dark Sky International. And I was using satellite imagery to look at the surrounding area, and I noticed this red box here. This is a satellite imagery, high resolution nighttime satellite imagery. And I noticed this big bright white thing. I'm like, what is that? And it's like, I figured it's a baseball field or something like that. But actually, when I looked at it, it was all residential. So I pulled the zoning data from that. In fact, in this case, there's over 4,700 homes in this 2 by 3 mile area. And that one bright home literally accounted for 12% of all the light emissions of all those properties. In fact, this one home was brighter than over 3,400 of the homes put together, the darker homes.
Okay, we want details. We want
the reason
numbers.
why I want, was it? Was it?
Is this Edith's home?
No, hope not.
What town was that in?
Yeah, what city is it?
It's in Naperville. And
Get to work, Ben.
Yeah, come on, Ben. What the heck?
Yeah, I actually have some photographs. We've gone to the home at night just to see what is going on, and some of those examples of residential lighting where it was sort of way excessive. It's a perfect example of that. So I didn't want to shame anyone specifically because I have the address. But the point I'm trying to make though is that literally a single residence, when lit poorly, when there's no ordinances or no limit on it, there are folks who will excessively light. I just wonder what their neighbors think. That's my question.
That is fascinating.
In my embarrassment, I put my email in the chat. So Ken, please feel free to reach out to me about Naperville.
I don't take it personally. I don't think you're to blame.
Let's
But
talk.
yes, I will.
I think Ben's to blame.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Comments? We thank all our panelists. It's a fascinating discussion. It seems relatively straightforward to me how any community of any size can pursue this opportunity. So I trust that a lot of us will be leaning on Taylor and Krista and Ken and David and others. Anything before we just announce very quickly our next Environment and Energy Committee meeting is on the 18th of March. And I'm going to read the title of that very, very slowly. Birds, Bees, and Trees. Thank you, Edith, for that tongue twister.
Mm-hmm.
We almost violated FCC rules, for God's sake. So we hope you can join us. Meanwhile, be careful out there. Stay warm. Keep up the great work. We appreciate you. And we thank you very much for spending part of your morning with us. Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Thank you.